So I have been in corporate Canada for over 20 years, everywhere from positions from stockroom guy shifting shoes and t-shirts, all the way through to sales guy to assistant manager to store manager, director manager, and up to president of organizations and sitting on some volunteer boards. And the reason I got into my own business, quite frankly, was, the value that I add is in developing people. I've seen that in every organization that I've led. And I've seen the impact it's had on people, and more importantly, the lessons I've learned from great leaders to pass on to others. And I thought the best way to do this is to go out and do it on my own and impact more businesses. So that's kind of how I ended up in this business today and why I'm doing what I do. Jody has a different background, so I'll let her speak to it, but she's a perfect complement to where I'm trying to take this together so we can impact more people.
So I have come on board recently with Marc in his business as his CMO and hoping to help with all things marketing. My background is more on the event management and sponsorship side of the corporate world. We actually met when we used to work together at BMO Field in 2007.
Scandalous.
And you don't need to put that in there. So I actually have worked for Marc in the past, and kind of grew my career from there. So I've worked, on large scale sporting events, concerts, every event that's ever happened at the Air Canada Centre, or the Scotiabank Place, I guess is what it's called now. Yeah. And, up to most recently where I worked for a not-for-profit. And so I feel like I've seen kind of all sides of the client service scope of the business, and how to, make clients or donors in my last job feel appreciated, as well as having the opportunity to lead my own teams along the way who have benefited from, the way that I approach leadership. And a lot of that is because of Marc's influence on me, but I do know we have many shared connections within some of those industries who have remained good friends of ours, and lots of people who, will still say to this day that Marc is the best boss that they've ever worked for, even when it was back in, 2007, 2008. And I've received, that similar feedback as well in my corporate career. So we just really want to be able to take, we take a bit of pride, I think, in our people skills and our relationship development skills, and be able to really make others better. So that's why I've joined Marc in this adventure.
Yeah, and I think she's being a little humble here. Jody, as a leader in a role in those major events, like, we're not talking little events here. We're talking like Canadian Opens of golf, World Cups of soccer, concerts, games. Jody had a different challenge than I had as a leader. So as a leader, I was a general manager. I was like the boss, so to speak. And so, my challenge was lead my people well, engage them, give them the skills, keep them retained. But ultimately they reported to me. So there was a level of willingness right off the start. Jody's responsibility was, yes, she had her own staff internally, but she was the one dealing with the third-party security company, the third-party ushering team, the third-party caterer, the third-party TV broadcaster. And that takes a special side of leadership to get people engaged when they don't have to. And Jody's always been amazing at that, which is the value I see her bringing in to help me, even as I build some of my courses in that environment, but also bring that experience to more companies who are trying to impress their customers with their events. So it's kind of a 2-for-1. And then lastly, she's a way better marketer than I am. I am terrible. Anybody watching this video will know that I like,
just a little
post
more
too much.
Detail oriented, just a little more detail oriented is all. Yeah. And I've had people say to me, oh my gosh, that's not a job I would ever want to do, right? Because you don't want to be accountable if something goes wrong. But I think that whole piece around managing people who aren't necessarily your direct reports, but who can directly impact the outcome of your work is all about that relationship building, building trust with people. I would like to think I'm a fairly personable person, and that's why I've had success in those spaces, because I genuinely like to get to know people, and I can be casual and joke around a bit while they still know that, ultimately they're accountable to whatever I'm asking them to accomplish for us, right?
And it's such a big part of the behaviors. Like I observe leaders like Jody and other leaders I've worked for that's an actual trainable behavior. Like Jody does a good job. She's selling herself a little short. She's really adept at the art of inquiry versus advocacy. Like Jody finds out what the stakeholders want, and she does it in a manner that people trust her and will open up. And then she can advocate the right solution to solve that problem. And she can do it when the fire's burning, right? Like that's the event business, and that's where I see the value. I am really passionate about training that stuff, putting it into a process, but put Jody and I in a fire together and she'll get us out safely, even though I know the way out and I built the fire plan. And so I think that's a really good way of how we complement one another. It's the reason I started the business. The people I'm trying to help are the people that have not been trained on the behaviors to be successful and help others succeed. You know, whether that's sales or whether that's leadership or whether that's strategic planning, it's bringing awareness. Like I've just been lucky enough to work with leaders who have taught me this stuff in different spots. And I'm trying to bring all those leaders and their process combined in one to more people to have more of an impact. So that looks like any manager in any company that hasn't had training on how to be a manager and wants to serve their people well. And they were just thrown into the role because they were good at selling, but they don't know how to manage people who sell. I'm trying to bring those behaviors to build their confidence so they can increase business results, but more importantly, impact mental health in the workplace so people go home happy. That's who I'm trying to find.
Yeah, and I think as someone who, and I probably Mark and I would both feel this way, maybe those types of skills came a little bit more naturally to me just because of the way I am as a person, but they don't come naturally to everyone. And so how can those who need some support in those areas, get the right training and resources to be successful as a leader? Because, some people will say, people are natural born leaders. Is it a learned skill? I think we truly believe that it can be a learned skill, but that it needs to be trained. You can't throw, an entry level associate into a manager's role and expect them to know how to coach their staff or better their people, or, some of them are probably just trying to hold on and figure out, how to give a performance review. So, we just want to really make sure that is a trained skill to people who need it.
I believe sincerely that I have to pay it forward, because I've watched different employees in different teams and different organizations get different levels of leadership. And I've seen the impact it's had on people and their business results, both positive and negative. And the common thread that I've had for 98% of my career is I worked for a lot of people who cared about me. And they took the time to develop me. And sometimes those were difficult conversations, and sometimes they were recognition conversations. And so I'm doing this so more people can have that impact that I had from other people. And I want to scale it. I think more people deserve that. And I'm trying to, help business owners understand that not only is it good for your people and not only will it retain staff, but yes, you can be a servant leader as an example, train these behaviors, have a measurable process, and grow your business. You can have both. And that's been the block. The people who genuinely care about it will buy in and do it because they want to do the right thing for their teams. But fairly, a bunch of other organizations say, hey, listen, I have a fiscal responsibility. And if this isn't going to drive the business, you can't prove it to me, I'm not going to jump in. So I'm trying to reach as many of those people so we can change employees' lives and business results at the same time.
I just know Mark as a person just constantly is wanting to better those around him. And this type of business is something that really allows him to do that. And me choosing to join aligns with that kind of vision, because I think as a couple, we just really want to see other people happy and succeeding. And sometimes people need a little bit more support in those spaces.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. I think that's our desired state, is to see people succeed. And sometimes it's not willingness, it's just awareness. People don't know this is out there, and they don't know they can create that change, and they want to, and they're stuck. And some people have been trained the wrong way. Make the phone ring and get those sales, and I don't care how you do it. And And people struggle and they don't know how to do that, and no one's training them, and they're being fired and they're being let go. But if we can just give some awareness to these simple things that can allow people to succeed at work, everybody wins. Mental health goes up, business results go up, people stay longer.
Well, I think the pandemic also has taught us that having that flexible option for your staff, we all had to pivot, as they say, to be working from home.
Pivot, the business term of 2021.
But I think the pandemic's really taught us that, flexibility in the workplace is actually the best thing, an employer can do for their employees, because we kind of had to. And so we've now given staff the flexibility to work from home, potentially, maybe it's some different hours, and those kinds of things. But to be able to be a servant leader in that space, you really need to trust your people that they're going to reciprocate for you because you've given them the flexibility. I think for me, that's been a big realization. It's like, oh my gosh, what if you just trusted your employees to get the work done, but you gave them the flexibility to do it when and how they needed to do it? That's like the biggest thing for me, especially I mentioned to Mark earlier today, we have 2 little kids. When our first was, a toddler and in daycare, and I went back to work in Canada, we stay off for a whole year. When I went back to work, I was commuting an hour each way into the office and had to drop our son off at daycare on the way. And he was at daycare from 7 in the morning until 6 at night. And being a working mom, that's stressful. I had no flexibility because I had to be in the office for a set number of hours. Now, if my employer at that time have come to me and said, we can see this is weighing on you, we think it would be helpful for you, why don't you work from home 2 days a week? Back then, even at that time, I would have thought that was like the best thing that could have ever, happened to me as a working mom. But that was not something that was even considered back then. And so I just think the pandemic's really shown us that can work for people, and providing that flexibility can really improve your own mental health as a working parent.
Yeah. Now the skeptic side of me steps up, and this is where the gap is. I completely agree with what Jody's saying. And not only because I have to, no, I'm just teasing here. That is the ideal state, but the reality, the gap that I keep calling the learning gap and the gap for change is, we have to deal with the fact that business owners, some of them won't do that if they think it's going to be bad for their business. So the trust isn't coming from I don't trust Jody. It's, I don't trust I can open this up and still drive my business and have a workplace for all these people. Mm-hmm. And so we need to put things in place that say, yes, you can do it. Yes, you can be flexible. Here's how we can teach you to help your people lead remotely and still monitor the business results. Mm-hmm. That's the way you're going to get the hesitant business owner who says, I want to, but I don't trust it. And it's not you, it's business. Mm-hmm. We got to close that gap. And that's what I believe, honestly, I'm here to do, is create that change.